thought-provoking and thoughtful these questions were. In my head, I'm thinking maybe someone will ask me what my favorite color is, or I didn't even know, frankly, if anybody would want to ask any questions, but what I saw was just so creative and so exciting, and I had to truly sit down and to think about a lot of these questions. Otherwise, I would have just come on camera and had to really, truly spend time thinking about my response. I'm not often asked any of these types of questions, so anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to write up such interesting, creative, cool questions. I'm excited to answer them this evening. Now, just a quick note regarding the poll. That was in addition to the questions that I asked for. There were a good amount of people who asked for gum chewing, and a smaller but still significant amount who asked for no gum chewing and no soft-spoken whispering. And because I want as many people who want to watch this video as possible to actually tune in, I'm going to have my very next video be a gum chewing story time video, because it's very possible that the people who asked these questions might really dislike gum chewing, and I would be sad if they felt deterred by watching it because of that. So I am going to include that in my very next video, okay? I promise. Followed by a soft-spoken video as well. Okay, so just getting that out of the way. Thank you so much. And as always, I so appreciate your support. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. If you have not had the chance to subscribe yet, it would mean so much to me if you would consider doing so. Or perhaps liking, commenting, sharing, tapping the little notification bell. All of that good stuff. No pressure, of course, but felt like it might be worth mentioning. Okay. So with that, let's get into the questions, because again, there are a lot, and they are high quality questions, okay? So let's get right into it. First and foremost, do you have a favorite musical? The answer to this question is yes, I do. My favorite musical, as of now, my favorite musical is Beetlejuice. And I may have mentioned in previous videos that I've taken a lot of inspiration from Beetlejuice with certain design choices in my home, at least certainly in my former apartment. Nothing too wild, but I just really like Beetlejuice. So anyway, I would say that is my number one. I saw it on Broadway a few years ago, and I think unfortunately it's no longer on Broadway, but I think they're still touring like some variation of Beetlejuice. I don't know, but it was really good. I love all things spooky, and there are some questions about that coming up as well. But so that was sort of the obvious choice for me. I haven't seen a ton of musicals, but that one be seeing them again anytime soon, if at all, which makes me really sad. I really would have liked to see them again. I have seen them before, but I would have liked to see them for this last tour, and I don't think it's gonna happen. And again, it could have already passed. I just have not had the capacity to even look into it. But so Odessa, Hippie Sabotage, because I like their vibe. Very similar, kind of like chill, relax, atmospheric vibes as Odessa. I listen to both of those artists a lot. Great background music, great focus music, work music, driving music, just all of the things. I love everything that both of these groups put out. Okay, I also added Daft Punk, because they're gone, right? They have since retired. Don't know if they'll ever come back. It would be pretty sick to have them at a festival, especially to play their old stuff, like Alive 2007. Just play that front to back, and I would be a very happy camper. Okay, I've also got Subtronics, because I've been wanting to see him for so long. It's like dubstep, EDM, electronic music. It's certainly not everybody's cup of tea. I totally get it. But I think it would be a lot of fun. And in a similar vein would be Sudden Death, which is another sort of like dubstep, almost metal EDM. So that's why I say kind of like take the genres with a grain of salt, because like Odessa sounds vastly different from Sudden Death, but I'm just gonna put them all on the electronic camp. Okay, moving on to indie alternative rock. First on that list, no doubt, no question in my mind, it's the White Stripes. Would love a reunion tour. I'll probably never get it in my life, but I would love to see the White Stripes play live. I also added the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Fiddler, Animal Collective, Grandson, Matt Mason, and a smaller, more local band. And when I say local, I don't mean here in Vermont. I mean local to me. Once upon a time, back in the day, is Bonsai Trees, who I saw a few times in New York, but I think they play mostly around like New York, New England. I think they go other places too, but again, they're a smaller band. And I think there's probably a lot of smaller bands I could have thought to add to this. This is the list that came to my head when I sat down and thought about it. But anyway, feel free to check them out, or any of the bands or groups that I am listing at this time. Okay, for pop, and little asterisk when I say pop, I mostly mean hyperpop. Also not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. Okay, we've got 100 gags. I love 100 gags. I love me some 100 gags. MIA. Underscores, Glass Animals, Declan McKenna, Oliver Tree, and Charlie XCX. Now, I listen to a lot of Charlie XCX. However, I did see her live and I wasn't super impressed, unfortunately. It could have just been me. It could have just been that particular set, that particular performance. But it was one of the rare occasions where I thought the live performance was not as good as what I listened to, like on Spotify. But for my festival, I'm giving her another chance. Okay, and then for the hip-hop rap genre, we've got Black Bear, Young Thug, Death Grips, and Denzel Curry. So that's my list. Again, I could probably add many more artists, but those were the gotta have sort of names that I could come up with. But anyway, really cool question. Okay, if you're sad or having a hard time, what is your go-to self-soothing tactic? Self-soothing tactic. For me, I would say there are actually multiple tactics. I have sort of a routine that helps me when I am in that sort of space. And I would say that it starts by taking a hot shower. After my surgery, I realized that showers can actually feel so healing, and started sort of utilizing them in that way. So my routine starts with a hot shower, and then I put on something that's really soft and cozy because the sensory tactile component is really important to me as well. So I make sure I am warm, comfy, and cozy, and that often also means grabbing lots of big blankets. And then usually I will find myself on the couch or in bed. I'll have either some iced lemon water or a big cup of herbal tea. I will have something activity-wise to not distract me, but again to sort of soothe me. And that is either watching a comfort TV show, which could be Curb Your Enthusiasm, it could be Golden Girls, something that is just light, easy, doesn't require a lot of brain power, just to have something on with me. I could also be doing a word game on the New York Times app. I do those a lot, like Connections, Wordle, the crossword. So it really depends, right? If I need to shut off my brain, I'll watch something or listen to something ASMR. I'll just pop that on, have that going in my headphones. But if my mind is racing and I'm quite awake, I will focus that energy on a word game. Depending on how bad my mood is, maybe even a Duolingo lesson. But if I'm not doing well in the lesson, that makes me feel worse. So that's iffy. That's really iffy. I also like to snack, so I'll be sort of posted up. Again, I'll have my beverage, I'll have whatever activity I have going on, and then I'll either cut up some slices of pear or apple. I'll make some popcorn, depending on what time it is. And again, sort of what I'm yearning for, maybe a few chocolate squares. Things that just make me feel comfortable and just happier, I think that probably covers it. Some combination of those things. And then this question is sort of similar, but I'm going to add to it. It's, what's your go-to pick-me-ups, things that lift your positive energy? I would say, so it's the same as what I've mentioned above, but depending on the day, it could be a variety of things. If I'm not really down and out and needing to go through that routine, it could be as simple as going out in the sunshine and touching grass, putting my feet in the grass. I love to identify different plants and flowers in my yard and in my neighborhood, so maybe I'll go take a walk in the neighborhood and just admire what's popping up. And I have an app called Seek, Seek, that allows me to identify things that I'm not familiar with by taking the picture of it. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing that. Being outside in general usually helps me. I'll sit on my front porch or my back deck area assuming it's a nice day out, that'll really help me. If it's not a nice day out, then I love going to get bubble tea or some kind of tea. Could be an iced tea or an iced coffee. I like to get out, if I'm feeling like I need that boost of energy and life and excitement. Like, I might even just go pop around, do some window shopping, kind of walk aimlessly around some place. Maybe it's indoors if the weather's bad. But again, it kind of keeps me thinking about other things, and I'm being active, I'm walking around. And like, let's be real, sometimes it just feels good to buy something. I hate to say it, but sometimes that does lift my mood, at least temporarily. So, it is what it is. I don't want that to be like the direct avenue or approach, but it could be an option. I also like to journal. Writing helps me a lot of the time. Taking photos of things, reading if I'm in the right mindset for it, and similarly, like dancing and listening to music if I'm in the right mindset for that. Like, again, it really depends on where I'm at, what I'm feeling, what the vibe is, but I kind of like pick and choose from those sort of activities. There's probably more, but those are the go-tos I can think of. Okay, and what reliably makes you laugh, So I'm gonna think of TV shows, primarily, because reliably, other than like certain friends that I hang out with and talk with, like, they certainly always make me laugh. My roommate makes me laugh a lot. Just, we talk about stupid stuff, and that just makes me laugh. I laugh at myself, because similarly, like, it's like when silly things happen, you're like, oh, this just, it's funny, like, don't get mad, don't get sad, just laugh. That's kind of the mentality for me. But I would say, in terms of TV shows that reliably make me laugh, because you can't predict like what your friend's gonna say or what's gonna happen in your day-to-day, but Curb Your Enthusiasm always makes me laugh. I'm on season 5 right now. Really late to the party on that. I don't know, I never thought to watch it until recently, and I've been really liking that as a comfort show. I think that's a question that comes up later, but yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Arrested Development also really makes me laugh. Sometimes Ugliest House in America. It's another good comfort show. Sometimes Golden Girls, but I don't watch that one as often as probably Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's the go-to right now. Just because, that's the current it's so affirming to me, and it helps me release some of my desire for control in life and in situations, and what is truly aligned with you will remain aligned with you. And it's okay if something is not meant for you. It is okay to let it go. So that's sort of the final piece of advice, is it's okay to let go of what no longer serves you. And in fact, you should. You should not grasp onto something that wants to go away because we continue to grow and evolve in our lives constantly. Otherwise, what's the point if we didn't, right? And so naturally, there are going to be things that enter into your life that are new. Things might remain, but there are also things that just no longer fit into your life's plan or life's path, and that's okay. So yeah, I would say comparison is the thief of joy. What's meant for you will never pass you by, and it is okay to let go of what no longer serves you. Again, I feel like for all of these questions, you could say so much more. Like, I could keep thinking of these things, but these three felt right. They felt like they really encapsulated the way I think now in my current life, and what I try to focus on and remind myself of, that I think would have saved me a lot of trouble and heartache and anxiety if I really embodied these quotes in my earlier years. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of water actually, and I'm going to show off my brand new, I'm calling it Bug Jug. Bug, B-U-G, J-U-G, Bug Jug. Look at the size of this thing. It's a big glass mason jar with bugs, with a glass straw. I've been trying to hydrate more, and I've been walking around with a massive mason jar bigger than this one, but it has no handle, so I look like, I envision a guinea pig that's trying to hold on to the little like water feeder, but its hands are so teeny tiny and the feeder is so big. That's how I feel, because I'm like, I just feel so silly with that thing walking around. It's cumbersome. I got small hands. It doesn't work. So I saw this in the store today, and I was like, I need it. It was more than I wanted to pay for like a glass jar, with some bug stickers on it. But I know I will use it because I complain all the time about my weird little guinea pig situation. So I was like, just do it, okay? Just do it. Anyway, next question. What was a belief or view that you used to hold that you've always feel that if I did not do 5, 10, 20, 30 things that I had on my list in a day, I would feel like a failure. If I took a moment to rest and relax and do something that I did not deem as productive, I would feel extremely guilty. And having that mentality is not healthy. Having that mentality burned me out by like 25. I hit a wall. I was exhausted. I had lost my motivation. I was apathetic. You can't do that to yourself. And so I see rest as vital now. I view listening to your body and mind and not fighting it as essential. And I had been slowly getting onto that track for a while. But when I was out of commission for like 6 months, recovering, not being able to do much with my leg, I was forced to rest. I was forced to set boundaries. I was forced to accept that there were days where I couldn't move very much. And this is an extreme example, right? But there were days where I truly had to say no because it was not possible. And then I had to say no and to learn to say no because it wasn't the right thing for me to do in that moment, because I knew I needed to focus on healing and recharging and doing what was best for me. Now, with that recovery situation sort of in the rear view, I still see how important it is to have those boundaries, to take care of my body and my mind. And again, I've been working on this for years, but every year I would say I value it even more. You know what I mean? Like, it's becoming more of who I am, what I really take seriously and think is essential for growth and for just human functioning. Because what I was doing before was not sustainable. It was not sustainable in any way. It was not sustainable. And so I don't recommend having that sort of mentality of work, 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 produce, produce, produce. And I don't mean just in like a paid work scenario. I mean like in your home, in your personal life, whatever tasks you put on your list. Like, there are so many ways that we work ourselves to an early grave. Grind culture is not it. It's not it. It's not it. So, of course, that's just my belief through my own lived experience. You might have a different one, but I think that is a very sort of distinct difference between where I was several years ago to where I am today. So, okay. I would like to hear you talking about your career shift and why you did it. I love you. Thank you. I love you too. I love you too. I love you too. I love you too. And I have a few career questions, so I'm going to kind of go through them and I'll try to add whatever I don't mention in the question before. But to talk about my career shift, when I was in college, well, I guess maybe I should start a little earlier than that. When I was in high school, I kind of teeter-tottered between becoming a marine biologist and going into the communications field. Ultimately, I decided communications, but you'll see that my interest in sort of water and aquatic life and environmentalism does come back into play. But I started with a major in communications with a minor in psychology. And during my college career, I held 6 internships and I worked part-time on campus for 2 or 3 different was not giving me any sense of purpose, which I didn't know was so important to me at the time, but I learned quickly that I really needed a sense of purpose to drive me, because what I felt like I was doing, and I don't even mean just the actual tasks or content of the work, I mean like what I was writing about, what I was talking about, the events we were hosting. It just felt like there were more important things I could be doing. I was like, is this, who is this benefiting? You know what I mean? And again, I think it probably did benefit some people, but it just didn't align with me. You know, getting back to that point about alignment, it just wasn't for me. And the personalities I worked with were challenging for me, and it just wasn't a fit after a while. And so I shifted gears and moved into the nonprofit space, and at this point, not regarding environmental work, just nonprofit at large. And I did some more sort of like communications, marketing, events work in that space. Felt like I was getting closer. And so I worked in that space towards the end of my college career, and then when I first graduated college. But I had this sort of gnawing feeling of like, I want to focus on environmental work. It just was sort of calling to me. It had been an interest of mine for, I don't know, years at that point, and I didn't do anything with it because my degree was not in any kind of environmental science, and I didn't feel qualified, and I was like, I don't really know where to even start. I didn't know what to do with that yearning. But I took a risk one day and I applied for a role with AmeriCorps, which, if you know anything about AmeriCorps, you know that it's basically volunteer work. You don't get paid next to anything. I worked an AmeriCorps position for a year and I made $15,000. And I was living in New York at the time, Brooklyn. And so it was really, 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 emphasis, underline, bold, really difficult. But it did what I wanted it to do, which was to get me into that space, to teach me. I learned a lot, and I ended up staying with that organization for 4 years. My role ended after a year with AmeriCorps, and then they hired me on to do different work. So that really got me into the environmental space. Again, I was doing a lot of like communications work, but I had also learned a lot about advocacy and community work and education, informal education, right? Like I wasn't a teacher, but I was still leading a lot of important programming, helping with events for the community, things like that, and then doing actual environmental work, like stewardship work, and it varied. Like I got to sort of experience it at all, which I really appreciated. And then when I moved here, I continued doing that environmental work. That's what I do to this day. Obviously, this job is different from my last job, but it remains in that same industry. So I imagine I will continue in it. It feels, again, like I'm in alignment at this moment, but who knows? Like that could change at any time. Just how we are as people. So that's a little bit about my career shift. And what's the next career question? Okay, if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear more about what you do for work. And then it says also, what was the process for you to switch to eating mostly vegan? So we'll get to that one in a second. But so more about what I do for work currently is, again, it really varies from day to day, but I would say that I mostly reside in the sort of environmental organizing space. So I do a lot of work with community members in and out of the state with this sort of ongoing goal of information and what the needs of the community are, what the needs of the state are, you know, what we perceive to be, right, based on our knowledge and information and what have you. And so really making sure that we are empowering these communities to be able to do these things if they want to, right? So I do a lot of work all over the place. I host community events, and I try to, in whatever way I can, bridge the gap between community members and local leaders, and oftentimes even local legislators, because I think there can be a real disconnect, and a lot of community members don't realize the power that they have with local leaders, like truly. And so we talk about the different ways that they can engage with those folks and build those relationships in an effective way, and that's not all of what I do, but that's a good chunk of it. And again, there's like a big community focus on it, and building partnerships and relationships, hosting events, focusing on different environmental issues and campaigns, and sort of watching what's happening in the state and nearby states and really the whole country, and all the various intersections of that work that come into play. So again, it's sort of a mix, but I would say there's a heavy focus on organizing in my current role. Okay, and then to answer the second part of the question, which is, what was the process like for you to switch to eating mostly vegan? I would say it was terrible. It was terrible. Only because I made it that way. I did what you're not supposed to do, which is, no pun intended, I went cold turkey. And I just completely flipped a switch one day, and I said, I'm done eating meat and dairy, without really having any concept of how to make that transition. I was like, oh, I'll just figure it out. How hard can it be? It can be very hard, okay? I ended up having to go to a doctor about a month in, maybe less, because I was having a lot of really bad digestive issues, and my mood plummeted, my mental health plummeted, and I found out from my doctor that by cutting off my consumption to meat and dairy, I was altering my hormone levels, because unfortunately there are a lot of additives and hormones in that type of food. And so sometimes it can temporarily alter your mood. There was a good chunk of time where I was extremely depressed, like worse than I had been in a while. And I was really confused by that, but that's also when I learned that I was not doing what I needed to do in terms of effectively making that transition. Like, I had cut out, again, all of the stuff that I used to eat, and I didn't replace it with anything, right? So I was just eating like a lot of carbs. But now I know that if you're vegan, you need to take a B12 supplement. A lot of the time you need to take iron if you err to the side of anemic, which I do. Basically, I got blood work when I went to that doctor's appointment, and they were like, yeah, you're deficient in a lot of stuff, and it was totally on me. I didn't do the work or the research. Now, again, I take those supplements. You know about the supplements, and I make sure that I've replaced those sort of protein sources with other forms of plant-based protein, like lentils, chickpea, quinoa, nuts, and nut butters, and butternut squash. I mean, there's a million ways you can get that sort of protein, and it took me a little while to actually learn effectively how to do that, but it doesn't have to be that way. I would recommend a transition where you ease into it slowly, slowly remove and add to your diet, remove the old, replace with new, and do it in a way that is easy on your body, because when you just do it overnight like I did, your body gets real upset. I mean, you're changing the whole because I don't eat meat and I would need a piece of pig to go into my body, which I find fascinating, but it's not a guarantee that that would happen. There are people who live their entire lives and they don't need the replacement surgery or any kind of medical intervention. They just keep it checked on and they're okay. But it's also common that as you age and you have more stress on your heart, that's just a natural part of like aging, that intervention is necessary. So it's different for everybody. The timing is different for everybody. There's no way to predict it. I just know that it's something I don't love to think about. But luckily for me, so far, my measurements have not changed really at all since I was diagnosed, which is a great sign. And I just hope that continues to be the case, and I try to be really mindful about my health and what I consume, my activity levels, my stress levels, all of these things that hopefully will keep my heart healthy. That's really important to me. So that's a little bit about my medical condition, if you haven't heard. I can't remember if I've done a story time on it or not. Maybe I should. On my recent appointment, I feel like I should remember if I did that or not. But it's very late right now, and maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. Okay. Oh, and then just because I've floated comments about surgery, that's not what I'm talking about when I say my recent surgery. I mean on my knee, because I recently, a year ago, I tore my MPFL, which is a ligament in your knee. I tore it and I got a ton of other knee damage along with it because I fell and it was a whole thing. But I had surgery from that and it took about 6 months to like actually recover and get back to somewhat normal capacity and functioning. So if you've heard me refer to that, that's what it's for. It's totally separate and unrelated to my heart. So just want to clarify that. Okay. Next up we've got, what is your favorite Halloween memory? So that's really hard. It's really hard to think of just one. I have so many, but I think it was back when I was working in a haunted house, and I remember that it was right before Hurricane Sandy, that is separate. That's not a good memory, right? I'm just giving you context for the timing, because when I say it was right before, like we could feel the winds. I was working outside at the time. Which yes, it was cold and you could feel the wind. You could feel like a storm was coming, and so I remember that. But I really enjoyed that particular shift. I was working with one other person on this particular set, because there were different sets and scenes throughout, like this haunted house. I mean, what I was on that night was more of a trail. But regardless, we were like put in this space and we had our characters and we worked really well together. He and I were pretty good friends, and so we had a good dynamic going that evening, and it was a lot of fun. We just went like totally nuts. It was sort of like an infirmary setting, if you can imagine that, and there was just like a lot of running around, climbing on things, being crazy with one another, like again having a really good rapport and just, I don't know, scaring the crap out of people. And there were a lot of good nights working that job, but that one, I don't know, I have it sort of like ingrained in my brain. It was just so fun and a good workout, because again we were like running around being crazy. What is my favorite horror movie? I would say historically, and I would say historically, Sinister. When I saw that movie in theaters, I went home and I couldn't sleep. I was actually terrified. That movie like really scared me. But recently, in the recent years, course, this movie didn't come out recently, but I really loved Get Out. And I liked it. The new one, not... So there's the new one and there's the old one, but there's now a second It, I think. Like a second new It. Like part 2. That one I haven't seen. But I really like the first new one, if that makes sense. But I would say Sinister is the number 1 and Get Out is number 2. Oh, I also really like Evil Dead, the old one, because it's funny. Like, it's just comical how bad it is. But let's, like, for ease of conversation, let's just say Sinister. What is the last song you listened to? What is the last song you listened to? Holly by Sleigh Bells. Holly, 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 Holly by Sleigh Bells. Sleigh Bells, Sleigh Bells. Do you have anything on the bucket list? Yes, I do. It's funny you should say, because I used to have one when I was a kid. I've lost it, and I recently started to make another one. So, here's what's on the list. Lay under the stars in a truck bed, which is oddly specific and fairly simple. Like, I could make that happen. I just haven't, but I feel like it would be so picturesque and a fun activity that I would like to do. Okay, I'd like to start a successful business. I'd like to produce a song good enough for SoundCloud. And obviously, like, I would be my own judge of that. Like, there's no, like, entry for skill set. Like, I could post anything I want on SoundCloud, but something that I deem as good enough to put in a place where people could hear it publicly. I want to go to Bonnaroo at some point in life. I'd love to go to that festival. I'd love to see the Northern Lights, which of course I recently missed. They came to Vermont and I missed them. I was away that weekend. And it's on the list. I'm hoping I can catch them again at some point. I would also like to take a cross-country road trip, travel more of Europe. I've been to Germany for a short period of time and I would like to do more of that. I would like to write and publish a book, and broadly speaking, I want to make the world a better place. I don't know how to measure that, but that is important to me, and I want to do good things while I'm here. So it's a relatively short list, but that's what I have for right now. Okay, next question, next question, next question, next question. If you could have dinner with 3 famous figures, past or present, who would they be and why? Now, I am hoping that they will allow 5 people to sit at this dinner table with me, because if not, I'm going to have to do some sort of really awful power ranking, which I don't want to do. So we're gonna hope that we can have the 5. The 5. It was really hard for me to answer this question. So first, I have Susan B. Anthony and or Sojourner Truth, because they are 2 women's rights activists during the suffragist movement, and that's important. I would love to learn from historic organizers and like really successful organizers who did really impressive and oftentimes life-threatening work. Just deeply inspiring, and sort of on a similar note of activism and organizing, Malala Yousafzai, who is an educational activist in Pakistan and also the youngest Nobel Peace Prize recipient, so sort of similar reasoning for that. I would just love to learn about them and their experiences and their thoughts, and just deeply inspiring. And then we've got Jane Goodall and Sylvia Earle. Jane Goodall is a conservation scientist who you may be familiar with based off of her work with chimpanzees in particular. I mean, she's done much more than that, but that's what a lot of people know her for. And then Sylvia Earle, who is a marine biologist, so coming back full circle with that. She's also an oceanographer and want world peace, but I do think that violence sort of like brings its nasty tentacles into every bad part of life. I mean, we think about it globally, we think about it with war, we think about it locally, at home, in the home, in our communities, violence to our planet and our environment. I mean, it stretches far beyond just like one definition of violence. And sort of on that same thought, I think it's because we're like lacking love, and there's like a sort of epidemic of lovelessness in our society right now, and historically too. I am reading this book right now called All About Love by Bell Hooks, and I highly recommend it. But she talks about all of the different ways that lovelessness, lack of empathy, lack of compassion have really been detrimental in so many ways, in so many facets of life. And so it sort of got me thinking about like our power structures and again violence, because I think that is an underlying theme in a lot of what I perceive to be as really bad. If I had a magic wand, I would just love to see the end to violence. All forms of violence, right? I know that is wishful thinking. I sure know it, but that's what this question is asking, so that's what I would say. Okay. This question says, "Hi, I hope you are alright. I want to know how you got to know ASMR and decided to start making videos. I think it takes a lot of perseverance. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And yes, it does. I found ASMR for the first time in college. I stumbled upon a video on YouTube. Actually, my friend shared a video with me and was like, "This is so cool. Does this work for you? Like, is this relaxing to you?" So that was my first experience with ASMR proper. But I had experienced like tingles ever since childhood in different ways. And honestly, a lot of times it happened through listening to old people talk. And I know that's kind of weird, but I think it was a combination of like the quietness, like they would talk a little bit more quietly, and slowly. It was just a lot more relaxing, and honestly, sometimes there were mouth sounds, you know what I mean? Like it's just a different experience, different conversation. So yeah, like I said, I found the concept of ASMR in college, and then a few years later I decided to try making my own videos just because I had some ideas of what I wanted to see that I feel like I wasn't finding. I just sort of used it as an opportunity to be a little bit creative. I didn't really expect it to become a thing. It was just something I wanted to try. I certainly didn't expect to grow a following, and it's just something that I've enjoyed doing over time. And I've done it since then in different sort of waves. Like when I had more time, I used to post 3 times a week, every week. But I had a lot more capacity back then than I do now, which is why I only post once a week. I hope that will change. But it really just, it's life circumstance, so it all depends on like what's happening in life. And then let's see, when did you discover ASMR? So again, in college, but I experienced it as a child. And the first ASMR artist I ever heard was Gentle Whispering, which I think is probably the case for a lot of people. She was really big back when I mean, she's still big, but she was like the biggest that I knew of when I first started listening to ASMR. Okay. Has ASMR changed you as a person and the way you look at life? I would say yes. I definitely don't resonate with unexpected loud noises. challenging and emotionally draining, and I think that's why I need it even more in my personal life. And I see the distinction and the importance of that, to find peace and serenity and grounding and being present and all of those things. And so I want to surround myself with good positive energy when I can, because we live in a world that is lacking that in many ways. So I don't want to inundate myself with more negative energy than I need to. So those are a few obvious ways that I think ASMR has changed me. Yeah, like the loud noises and the content and the seeking of peace and solitude and quiet, and I enjoy quiet a lot more than I used to. I used to be terrified of quiet, and to be fair, I do have tinnitus, so quiet can genuinely be difficult for me at times. Even if I want it, the tinnitus triggers and is frustrating, but I do enjoy sitting outside, listening to the birds. That's quiet to me. I'm not talking like dead silent, but restful. I enjoyed that a lot more than I ever did. I mean, I used to live in a city and I thought I enjoyed those sounds, and then when I came here, I was horrified by how quiet it was, but it's like really lowered my blood pressure and has helped my mental health and has just made me a healthier person, I believe. Sort of a long-winded answer to that question, but there you have it. Okay, when is your birthday and how old are you? Just curious. So my birthday's in November, and I am a Sagittarius. I am currently 29, but I'll be turning 30 in a few months. Just crazy to think. I have a lot of feelings about that, but I am trying this new thing where I see aging as a beautiful thing that I find gratitude in, because it is, we are lucky to age. And I want to do that with grace. For many years I would cry on my birthdays because it would be a reminder that I am 1 year closer to death. And I think that's because I've dealt with a lot of loss in my life. And so I sort of had this naturally, like, really dark view of aging and getting older and death in general. But I'm trying a new approach. I have some friends who have really tried to instill in my brain that it's okay to get older, that it's a really great thing to get older, and that age is really just a number. It also helps when people tell me that I don't look like I'm 30. That feels good, but I know that's not important. That's just like, that's me being vain, right? It shouldn't matter how I look. But I do want to age in a graceful, healthy, positive way, and so that's my goal. That's what I am working towards this year, and so I'm trying to get excited about it, and I'll probably plan some kind of party just so I can feel like, oh yay, this is a cool, exciting thing that's happening for me this year. Okay, do you give yourself tingles when recording videos, like page-turning videos? Sadly, no, not at all. I wish I did, because I have to edit these every time I film them. I don't have to, but I like to make sure nothing weird or crazy happens, like sound-wise, or something cuts out. Like, I just want to make sure that everything is the way I want it to be. And so, I certainly don't give myself tingles when I'm whispering like this right now, and I don't when I listen to it back when I edit either, which is a shame, because that would be like, that would be pretty cool. It would be a lot more enjoyable for me on that front, but alas, no, I don't. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. For whatever reason, their own voice doesn't trigger that same sort of like response in your brain. I don't know why. Okay, what are your current interests in music, art, show, movies, etc.? Okay, so music, it totally depends on the day. Like, truly. I've been doing a lot of listening to my day list on Spotify. also listen to my Discover playlist on Spotify, which comes out every Monday. I find that the Release Radar playlists are pretty hit or miss. Those come out on Friday, but yeah, the Daylist and the Discover, I try to find new music on, because it really does depend on the day. But I would say, like, back to the question about the festival lineup, those are artists that I'm always kind of listening to, but they go across genres. If I had to say, like, what are the top genres that I've been focused on lately, it's probably like indie folk and hyperpop, which are two vastly different genres, but again, I like to switch it up. I don't like to listen to the same kind of thing all the time. Favorite shows, I would say Curb Your Enthusiasm, because it's an easy background show that makes me laugh. Ugliest House in America, I love like home decorating shows and renovation shows, especially now that I have a house. I'm always looking for ideas, and I have a lot of ideas that I would like to figure out how to implement in affordable ways. And I think Retta, who is the host of that show, is really funny, so I love her. I've also been watching The Sympathizer. I recently finished The Regime, and honestly, I watch a lot of shows on HBO Max. That's sort of my preferred platform, so I go there when I'm looking for new shows. I used to watch Survivor a lot. We had like sort of a Survivor kick because I had never seen it, but I sort of recently fell off from that. I was like, it's more good like background stuff, I feel. Movies, I love documentaries, which a lot of people are like, ugh, that's not very fun. I will watch other things. I like comedies, I like horror, I like action. Like, I will go see those types of movies and I will watch them at home. But when I'm alone and nobody is going to complain about what I put on, a lot of it is like documentary based, or like based on a true story type of content. I recently saw a documentary, and it's a short film. It was maybe like 20 minutes of that, and it is called I Am More Dangerous Dead, and I really liked that. I've been thinking about it since I saw it, and it's about an indigenous organizer and activist in Nigeria who worked really hard to fight the Shell oil company who came into their land and essentially caused great devastation. So it's heavy but deeply inspiring, and I don't know, I took a lot of value from that. So I like watching documentaries. I'm trying to think if there are other non-documentary based movies that I've seen recently that I really liked. I probably have, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure. The last movie I saw in theaters that I really liked, I think, was Oppenheimer. I know I've seen movies in the theater since then, but they didn't quite resonate with me in the same way because I can't remember them. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm pretty open with what I will see, like in theaters or at home. But if it's like me getting to decide, it's something where I'm learning. Let's see. Is there anything else I want to add to this question? Honestly, I don't really know how to answer the art question because I'm not very well versed on art other than local artists. I love buying local art from craftsmen and makers in my community, but I don't follow like any well-known popular artists at the moment. I just focus on like what I will find at, say, a farmer's market or a pop-up shop or just a local shop. I will buy that kind of art, but I'm not like, oh, seeking this particular artist for this particular type of work. So if I'm buying art, it's like from a Vermont local artist. Okay, let's see. Is there anything you're looking forward to? Always looking for summer plans and activities. Have some time with friends and family coming up that else? I'd like to go kayaking. That's something that excites me. I want to do that sometime soon. Definitely looking forward to future concerts and music. And I guess looking forward to turning 30. What is your aesthetic with clothing, makeup, house decor, etc.? Much love. Thank you. Well, as you can see in the moment, I'm wearing black. I tend to wear a lot of black or a lot of like greens, browns, like nature-based colors. So like starting with the black aesthetic, I'll wear like black simple tees, or hoodies, black jeans, black Chucks or Vans or Doc Martens. I gravitate towards it. Like I love a black graphic tee with like white font or white imagery, which is literally what I'm wearing right now. This is like a Vans crop top. Well, I made it a crop top, but I don't know. It just is something I see and I like it. But again, I do also wear a lot of like nature-inspired clothing, I would say too, like dark greens, browns, beiges. I do have blue jeans as well, not just the black, but I do like some funky nature patterns and florals here and there. Some Birkenstocks, like to have the feet out, so I can go touch grass, you know. It really just totally depends on the day, you know what I mean? In terms of makeup, I don't really wear any, not often anyway. Like right now I don't have anything on my face, literally nothing. I woke up an hour ago, and this is sort of like the second part to this video. So in the first part it was last night and I didn't have anything on either. I had just showered, so clean slate, clean face, but regardless, like this is how I'm gonna look for the rest of the day. I'm not going anywhere important that requires me to wear makeup. So like if I have an important work event or something and I want to make sure that I don't get like oily or glossy in any way, like I'll put on some foundation just to keep my skin looking sort of fresh, because if I'm like anxious or stressed or I'm in a hot room and there's like a lot of faces on me, like I can get a little bit oily, and so I'll put on some foundation to keep that at bay. If we're going real crazy, I'll put on some mascara. Sort of lengthen the lashes a little bit. But I do that rarely because I have really sensitive skin and my eyes get really irritated by mascara. And honestly, makeup in general, it makes me break out, like no matter what. Hi Vito. He's purring, but I don't know that you can hear it. I don't know that you can hear it through the mic. Come here, buddy. I like that he matches the mic cover. You match the mic cover, buddy. Did you know that? What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I don't really wear makeup because my skin doesn't like it, and I don't think that I really need it. Maybe one day I will change my mind about that, but I'm fine with rocking a sort of natural look. I don't mind at all. House decor, I'd say it's a little bit witchy, right? Would you agree with that? You might be able to hear some cat purrs, I'm not sure. It's a little bit witchy. Vito agrees. I'd say there are some blacks, some dark browns, like, don't mind my stomach growling. There are some blacks and dark browns, like dark brown woods. A lot of dried flowers hanging up because I think they're pretty. I would like to have more plants in my home, but unfortunately my little cat children eat them. They don't last 1 second and then they end up on the floor in the form of throw So I got this table and these four like high top stools for $60. I'm gonna stain them / paint them, and gonna keep converting my basement into like a cool hangout space. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, afternoon, whatever it is for you. I thank you again for your continued support of this channel and this journey of ASMR. It means so much to me. And I will see you very soon. I will see you very soon, very soon, very soon, very soon, very soon. With another video, another video, another video, another video. We're doing just one hand because I'm holding my cat in the other hand. Vito is wanting attention, so we're multitasking. We're multitasking and my stomach is growling.